We'll call the meeting to order. Would everybody please stand and we'll say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any public comments today?
Yeah, we must be sick. Derek, you got anything to say?
Hearing none, we'll move on. I would like to note that Derek did call and say that he would be here in about 10-15 minutes after we started, so we'll expect him. Mr. Bushu, we're ready for you. We'll get you on now, and Travis will fill us in on. Hey, Rob. Did you want to do any disclaimer at the beginning or anything else, Mr. Zuber?
Nope. No, other than the fact that Travis, of course, is here as representative of Bushu, who are our insurance people who kind of keep track, our advisors. And I just asked him to come in and talk a little bit about, in general, but more specifically about anything new and different coming up in the Affordable Care Act realm, which, you know, seems like it constantly changes for us, and sometimes it kicks in and sometimes it doesn't kick in. And then if he wanted to add anything, and that's where I'd ask anybody if they had any questions last month to send them in. I had no questions. I know, a big surprise to everybody. So, you know, I didn't have to give Travis any homework, so I don't think he was happy. I was happy about that. But that's about it, and I'll just let Travis start out.
Thanks for being here.
Yep, appreciate you having us back. So, just to kind of recap a few things from, I guess, the past couple of years that have been happening. When we first started working with the county, we'd kind of discovered some things in the way of time tracking and some things that were not happening for the ACA purposes. And we've been working with the department heads and kind of gotten a lot of that stuff on track. So Don has been very good to work with, and then also Pam and then Augie and his staff, and we've gotten a lot of those things ironed out. So we do have some things that have pushed into place. As I said, the time tracking was kind of a big item, making sure that we got the time sheets, and Don, I think, was pulling his hair out for a while, but we did get that stuff lined out, and that's all part of the Affordable Care Act. The most recent provision that I kind of wanted to bring the board up to speed with was more of a payroll related item, but the IRS reporting paperwork, which is the 1094 and the 1095 paperwork, that was due here to the employees at the end of March. We worked with Pam and kind of gave them some general guidance with that as well, and I know that's out. So those pieces are all in place. Now, as far as the actual act itself, I did want to go through a couple of things. As I said, the most recent items were the 1094 and the 1095 reporting, which those are IRS forms. That's the actual tax form itself. Those are completed. But on that 1094, that's where the county actually had to report how many FTEs and then how many aggregated employees they had. So that's part of why that timekeeping was put into place, is so we would get an accurate count of how many true part-time hours we had and how that equated to a full-time equivalency number. So those are all pieces that did go into effect. The other part that we are seeing, as you know, some of you have kind of mentioned and alluded to, you know, there was some transition relief if you were under 100, but basically a lot of that transition relief as of January 1 of 16, you know, pretty much everything's in the compliance now. So, and I'll say subject to the next election. Whatever happens in the next election is everybody's best guess. You know, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what's going to happen, but there are a lot of changes that are going on in the marketplace with regards to that. So, just briefly, kind of bringing you up to speed on the full-time safe harbors. 30 hours per week or 130 hours per month are still the magical numbers where you have to give somebody health insurance if they've averaged more than 30 hours per week or 130 hours per month. We've worked with and kind of set the measurement period. Basically, the measurement period is kind of what the look back period is, where we have to look back over the prior 12 months and say, did we have a variable hour employee that worked more than 30 hours per week on a regular basis in that measurement period? And then we would have to offer them health insurance. So those things are all in work and in progress. Now, skipping forward to a couple of things, there are, again, as I said, the transitional relief items and the items that are coming up. The measurement period will still continue. That doesn't ever end, so it's a perpetual thing where payroll has to look back all the time now and say, okay, we've had all these part-time, and I'm just going to say a deputy. We've got a part-time deputy. The deputy was hired to work 25 hours a week, but they really averaged 35 hours a week. So those are things from a management standpoint that you kind of have to watch and pay attention to now that you did not have to pay attention to, in the past because it was kind of set.
Travis, can I interrupt you
Yeah.
as we're going through this? If we have somebody who's already been retired and they're coming back and they're working part-time, is there anything that gets messed with if they hit this over average of 30 hours per week or 130 hours per month?
When you say rehired, meaning they were laid off?
No,
or-
they were retired.
Oh.
This is
And
somebody
they were
who-
drawing a pension.
As a retiree, yes, there are ACA guidelines, and then there's also IMRF guidelines, where by IMRF, they're only allowed to work, I believe it's up to 1,000 hours, because I think your county uses a 1,000-hour threshold.
That's correct.
So that you have to be very careful with to make sure you don't push them over that threshold the county has set, for the minimum hours.
So.
And there does have to be a break-in service.
Right, let's say we had to break in service. What you're saying is that county or employee has to make sure that they don't go over 1,000?
Well, it's kind of interesting the way it's written.
It goes back to the county?
Ultimately, in my opinion, it rests in the county. The county really has to manage that. Now, in the handbook for IMRF, it specifies the employee should know and monitor, but ultimately, if something happens to that pension, it's probably going to come back to the county.
Thanks. Sorry about that, I just.
Nope,
Do we
nope.
have anybody fits up in the county?
No, but we're
Think so,
gonna
but
have
I'm
to
just
watch
gonna-
that with the way the contracts have been modified.
Not yet, true.
Okay. It's gonna have to be that we're gonna have to, the sheriff's committee is gonna
Davey will
have
be
to.
close. I mean, he works a lot of hours, so.
Well, and with us sharing the overtime with the deputies and to a certain extent, the other folks, we need to watch those folks that are coming in
Right.
and doing.
Cause it's awful handy to pick up the phone, call him and say, hey, come on. He's, he knows what.
It's something we're gonna have to monitor, okay?
I just wanted to, you said that if someone works over 30 hours, like over the 30 hours a week or 130 a month, you simply have to offer that.
Well, it's actually an average over your 12-month measurement period.
Okay.
So they can go over in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months.
But over the, okay.
But if nobody's really watching it, you may get to the 10th or 11th month, and they've been over for 9 or 10 months, and there's really nothing you can do to, change it at that
Right.
point. So that's why a lot of our clients, they either manage it by the week or they manage it by the month, because it's easier to monitor.
And you simply have to offer it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because they may be getting it somewhere else, but,
They don't have to take it.
Right, okay.
They're not
They don't have
required
to
to
I'm
take
just
it.
curious
Or they may be on Medicare.
the kind of reporting you have to do with this.
Yeah,
stuff.
some of us old timers.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So again, for 2016, you still have the employer penalties. If you remember when I talked about this before, there were 2 penalties. There was the penalty for no coverage, which obviously you as a county are offering coverage. And then there's a penalty for unaffordable coverage.
Charging them too much. or whatever.
Yeah, basically in that unaffordable, they have several provisions that you kind of have to look at, but basically what it is you have the employee premium cost cannot exceed 9.56% of their gross household income. Now, obviously, if you don't have 2 employees employed by the county, then there's a W-2 safe harbor where you're looking at what their W-2 income is. So also with that is providing minimum value as part of the plan. So the minimum value is basically, is your plan meeting at least 60% of the actuarial value of the health insurance? Meaning, are you going to, your plan, Blue Cross Blue Shield, does it pay at least 60% of that actuarial value? So all of the plans that you're offering now, meet those thresholds and those guidelines, but those are still the penalties that are out there.
And whenever we bid those out, that is an expectation that we're looking for.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you want to have minimum essential value on
At
those
least we're
plans.
providing a plan, or at least one plan that's gonna get that.
Yeah, and for the most part, I think by contractual obligations, I don't believe that you really have anybody that you're not offering health insurance to that is above 30 hours per week. I think with your contracts, with the deputies and the FOP and telecommunicators and highways and everything, I believe everybody that's over 30 hours is getting the offer of health insurance. Does that sound right for everybody?
I think we're in good shape there.
Okay.
Hey, Travis, excuse me, will
Absolutely.
you roll back to what you just said about that 9 point something percent?
Yeah, basically what that is the safe harbor affordability provision. So the employee can't pay any more than 9.56% out of their pocket for the health insurance premium. So if you're paying as a county 100% of the coverage, obviously they're not going to have any out of their pocket. If you're paying a flat dollar amount, what you're calculating is off of your lowest premium minimum value plan. So if you're offering 4 plans, you're looking at, let's call it a high deductible health plan, which you guys offer. You're looking at that plan and saying, okay, our premium is X amount of dollars, and the employee is paying X amount out of their pocket. So as long as you don't exceed those thresholds.
In other words, if we got somebody making 20 grand, they can't be paying more than $1,912 out of their pocket.
Is it monitored every year? Do you have to monitor?
Yeah, and how that's actually monitored is through that 1095
Okay.
IRS form that I led off with. The PAM basically has to denote on there what the employee is paying out of their pocket. And it goes all 12 months, so it's pretty specific.
So it sounds like it sounds like we've got things in place,
Yes.
over the last couple of years with you guys kind of pushing around and our workers working around, so. yeah.
All right, so kind of moving beyond the employer mandate, you still have the Affordable Care Act fees and taxes, and these are all the add-ons that got added to the premiums, but you have what I call the PCORI fee, which is the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute fee. You have the annual health reinsurance fee. You have the Cadillac excise tax. Now, one note I did want to give you on the Cadillac excise tax is that was delayed. That was set to go in 2018. And that's basically where the government was going to set an excise tax if you had a high dollar plan. And I believe on the Cadillac tax, that was $10,200 for single coverage and $27,500 for family coverage. So if your premiums were at those levels, there was going to be a 40% excise tax. But as I said, that has been delayed. past 2018, and that's gonna be delayed for 2 years.
And we're nowhere close to that, so.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, kind of ending off, if you remember, I had previously talked about some non-discrimination issues, and there are
I'm
non-discrimination
in the middle of that
rules
meeting.
that are written.
I can talk
They're
to
not
you
being
here, buddy.
enforced yet, and we have not gotten any news as to when those may be in effect. But basically, that's where they're looking at what the top end of the organization, so the top 25% of the organization earners, are they getting a greater benefit than the bottom 75% of the organization earners? So, you know, as an example, it's kind of very similar to the retirement plans where they don't want the retirement plan to be top heavy. They look at the 401k discrimination laws, and the top 25% can't get a greater benefit than the bottom 75%. So as I said, those are out there. They're not being enforced right now at this point in time, but they are out there. Now, if those go into effect, it's a pretty heavy penalty with that. The penalty for the non-discrimination is basically $100 per day multiplied by the number of employees discriminated against. So,
It'd probably behoove you to just get in line as opposed to pay the.
yeah. All right, so that's kind of a quick, down and dirty summary of the Affordable Care Act and kind of. Yes.
There's nothing affordable. I do
Right.
have a question.
Yes.
And I think we've talked about it, but it's been a while. Next year, not this year, when we go into our planned year, October 1st, we're gonna be good for another year under the current conditions. But that following October, in other words, a year from this October,
October of 17.
we are no longer, the insurance companies are no longer gonna be able to offer us the plans that we're currently getting, is my understanding. We're gonna have a lineup very much like is online. If you go online, we're gonna have different plans that are based on, and the criteria in which the insurance company bases our fees is gonna change to geographic and non-smoking in October of 17, as I understand it.
Well, you have a couple of moving parts. What a lot of the exchange has done is modified things that are happening. So as an example, Blue Cross Blue Shield this year for the exchange network modified their network. So it's not the same network as a fully insured group plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So there are certain hospitals that may have chosen not to participate in those networks. The group market, as far as the networks go, are going to be fairly similar. You know, the network and everything will still be very broad with that. Now, as far as your plans and whether they're grandfathered or not grandfathered, yeah, there probably is going to be some changes with, you know, those plan offerings.
So you think that's still moving? I mean, it's,
I don't want to say everything's subject to the next election, but there's a lot of balls up in the air as to what happens, you know, with the Affordable Care Act. You know, I say it this way: I don't think it's going to go away. You know, could there be reforms? Possibly. You know, but the old system of health insurance is gone. You know, it's non-existent to what we had. I mean, we just have to work with what we've got now.
I think my point was trying to, with the changes, because of the way our plan lays out, we're actually is beneficial for us a little bit. Because we're gonna have, you know, our new plan will go into effect October 1 of 16.
16.
And we don't have to worry about all the crap that's gonna take place between January 1st, 17 until October, which will give the insurance companies and our consultant time to sort out what's going on. Is that a fair way to
Yeah.
take, plus the election will be over? So we'll have some stability through that fiscal year till October 1 of 17, which is, you know, we didn't plan it. I like to say we planned it that way. It's just the way it happened.
Well, and as an example, you've still got a $500 deductible plan. You have a $1,000 deductible plan. You have the $1,500 deductible plan, and then you've got the $2,500 deductible plan. Now, last year, you saw a 10.51% increase overall. You had 61 members that were part of the plan in total.
I think we've dropped now to, I think it's 57, but whatever.
61 out of how many?
Roughly.
Your full-time Augie, I think's right around 80-ish. Does that sound about right?
It does sound about right, yeah.
That is one of the things that could change with the audit, is the definition of the ceilings could change. That's something that they could modify. In other words, the 50 to 100
Correct. Yeah.
could then become 100. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. It's up.
But
in
that
there.
would be beneficial, obviously, if that happened.
Question's really not concerning
Fine,
insurance
go
here,
for
but I have the United Healthcare Advantage Plan plus Medicare, but I read somewhere where United Healthcare is pulling out of the Obamacare. That's the largest insurer in the United States. How would that affect other people? Not people on Medicare, or not us, but
Well-
it affects some people, right?
I'll say this, all of the participants in the exchange are experiencing some difficulties. You know, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you know, they've modified their offerings in the exchange. As I said, the network, you know, is different in the exchange. There's a lot of moving variables, and you know, I've heard some numbers. I don't know how accurate they are, but I don't know if a lot of the carriers actually made money in the exchange.
Well, they said United
I think
Healthcare
they
is
lost.
gonna lose something like $2 billion.
Yeah, I've heard Blue Cross was losing in the exchange as well. I don't know, you know, any figures on that. I've just heard some things
So what
thrown
happens
out
to the
there.
people that are insured by those companies? They don't have insurance anymore.
They would have to go to another exchange provider.
Okay.
But I know there are some carriers that are making modifications, you know, they're not gonna pay commissions in the exchange anymore, you know, those kind of things. There's just a lot of moving parts right now, so.
Travis, a little bit on the self-insured aspect of this PMG, I think, that we brought up before.
Yeah, you had asked me about that.
You know, we've had Blue Cross Blue Shield as basically our health insurance plan, and went to the couple of meetings, and they were talking about a different type of plan which is similar to our workman's comp. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, will we get, when we do that, you know, I think they were interested, obviously, in bidding on that, and I think we've had them at different times, or someplace around them.
Well, the IPMG actually runs the Illinois County's Risk Management Trust Program. So the property and casualty piece, it's the same group. Basically, what they're trying to do is pull together municipalities into a larger cooperative or program or trust, you know, whatever you want to call it. With self-insurance, it's a numbers game. You know, the more numbers that you have, the more vital it can become. So as a part of that, you know, what they're doing is out marketing to counties and municipalities and cities and other groups. I was telling Alan, you know, we have seen them on some other quotes with some other clients, and I think originally they started as a fully insured, and now they're moving to a self-insured. The biggest difference with a self-insurance program is you're basically responsible for your own claims. So you pick your claim level. Now the thing with their program and some others, and I'll just speak in generalities, a lot of self-insurance used to be a very high aggregated limit. So you would take a $150,000 or a $250,000 stop loss, and entity, meaning I'll just talk about the county would say, okay, we're going to insure everything from $0 to $250,000 in a claim before that claim gets into our stop loss carrier. So where that money comes from is the county. So the county has to come up financially with some dollars to pay those claims. Now, the difference in this is in fully insured, you have a premium and that's all you pay. In self-insurance, you pay a lower premium, you have your program cost, and then, you know, hopefully there's some money left over at the end that you can put into a bank account to pay your claims. So, as I was explaining to Alan, there are different corridors now. They're going down. The lowest one I've seen in the market is about $25,000, where they'll go down to a $25,000 stop loss. But that means, again, you've got 60 heads on the plan. You've got to assume 60 times $25,000. That's your maximum exposure. And then you're saying, okay, how many are going to hit the deductible? Is a third going to hit the deductible? Is a half going to hit the deductible? Is 3/4? And you're basically rolling the dice and saying, okay, here's what our maximum exposure is. Here's, you know, where we think we're going to run. And it's always a moving numbers game with that.
Plus, we have to maintain records on every one of those internally.
Somebody do it.
Somebody has to do that, so we'll have to have somebody
Well,
Not sure
and
how that works.
you actually have what's called a third-party administrator.
you have to pay for that.
Yes, and that's a part of the fees
That's good.
through IPMG.
Okay, all right.
They will do that. Now, I'm just gonna go back to payroll, because it could be a cross between Augie's office and Don's office. But there probably would be some additional reporting. So somebody from the county would basically have to, you know, when you get the monthly report from IPMG and they need $13,000 to pay claims, somebody's gonna have to cut that check. So I don't know if that's
That'll
coming
be
out
your
of.
job, Dan.
No, we're not doing that.
I don't know if that comes out of Augie's
And I-
office
And the
or.
reason I bring it up is I just wanted people to know there was a different avenue out there, whether it's bad, good, or
Does
indifferent,
the school
whether.
districts in the south still have
Mhm.
that plan, Egyptian Trust is out,
And
the name of it?
that's a little different though than what he's talking about
Okay.
here. I think of buying at 20%, 30%.
Well, Egyptian actually is self-insured, or the school program
Right.
is. They've got some very large numbers, but they do as well have a third-party administrator. The only difference is the schools really don't cut any checks.
Okay.
You know,
That-
it's, yeah, it's all managed through that third-party
It's been
administrator.
in existence for a long time, hasn't
About 30 years.
it?
I think back in the 80s,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
So it must work fairly well, they would not still have it, right?
They had one time that was pretty tough,
Well-
back and forth, that some of them did, but I think I haven't heard anything the last 5 years, but.
With the negative experiences, oh, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
are we done with?
No, I just wanted him to talk a little bit about the IPMU, because that's as Augie and I talked about.
Yeah, it
The
is
acronyms
a-
that we always throw around, that's
It
an
is a
acronym
new
that we
option
use,
that
that
is
we
out
use in
there,
a different,
yes.
in one of our different insurances
Right.
that handle, those are the guys that I think that even came in and talked to us.
Mm-hmm.
They're in
Okay.
Daniel Brothers that day, that's where they were from.
Right.
Okay, with the negative experiences that the providers of the network, what have the experiences shown you so far in the first 3.5, 4 months of this year as far as people that are renewing, like with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
It's kind of a variable item based on your claims.
Well, no, I understand that. So that'll all go away in another year, but
Yeah.
so far we still have to deal with it.
Well, it's been a mixed bag. I would say, if you look at the national numbers, I don't think the national numbers represent, this area very well. Because when you look at, the Kaiser Family Foundation as an example, and this isn't exact, but their national average of health insurance is a 3 or 4% increase. I can tell you, we've got groups that got much larger increases than 3 or 4%. But the other thing on the national level is they don't factor in plan design changes. So if you change the network, if you change co-insurance, if you change an out-of-pocket maximum to reduce your cost, it's hard to really account for, you know, what that increase really is. Looking at your 10% last year, you know, I would say that's, you know, probably where the market's at, if not hopefully a little bit lower, but, you know, that's, we've seen variables. We've got, you know, we had a couple that were in the 20s. We got one the other day that was a 0. You know, but their demographics really changed. Their average age went down, you know, so they were an older group and now they've went to a pretty young group. You know, so their average age moved, you know,
Get rid of that.
8 or 9 years, you know, which makes a big
I'm
difference.
gonna be
in-
helping you boys
in
out,
numbers.
just tell them.
How,
You and I
But-
are helping out.
and,
Appreciate it.
and to kind of talk about, kind of piggybacking off of what your
Please.
question is, you know, ultimately, if we do look at bidding for the October date, you know, as we did last time, you would have to have applications filled out by all the employees, so there is a time frame to get that done. But what we had kind of put together, basically is, you would probably have to look at beginning that process sometime in May or June. You know, the county would have to make an official decision in that time frame. I think we had kind of picked out, I think you've got a board meeting June 8th. You know, that would kind of be a D-Day of, you know, having to make that decision. You would have completion of the specs, you know, which obviously we would try to match those off of your current plans. But the big thing is those individual health applications, and that's basically all full-time employees would have to fill out that application. And then that's the 10-page deal, so it's
I thought we already
it's
filled that out
standardized.
once. I thought that was the deal. If you filled that out once, it was
No.
good forever.
Yeah,
That would be nice.
that was before your.
Oh, you helped me. Don't
I
you remember
understood it
that?
exactly that way, Alan.
Is Alan, and will your committee be able to make a recommendation on how we should
Is
proceed?
that Andy and I and who else?
Not me.
Mike? I think that's all three of us, isn't it? Let me
At
see.
any rate.
Well, I know,
I
second.
am.
No, Derek.
Is it Derek?
Derek's not here, so he didn't get a choice.
Right.
No, I mean, that's your recommendation, though, isn't it?
But you, yeah,
What
and
is
just
your
kind of going through
recommendation?
the timeline, you would
Okay,
have
keep
basically a bid opening sometime in July or early August. You would review the bids, you know, probably at a study session sometime in August. And that would get approval from the board sometime in August. I think we've got August 10th as the board meeting date.
On your reviewing the bids?
On
Alright.
approving the review, we had basically a study session in August. We wasn't sure when that would be.
But like, if you're wanting it on a board meeting, that's only like 2 days before that,
Okay.
that review.
And then we were basically leaving, you know, the entire month of September for open enrollment.
Right.
You need to kind of leave a month in there so Augie's office can
So
have
you're
some say.
recommending that we rebid it again this year?
Well, last year we renewed. The year before, I believe we bid.
And that's kind of what we plan on.
No, that's
doing.
fine.
Every other.
Yeah, like every other year or listening, I mean, if there was something weird that we didn't need to do it for 3 years, that's fine, but that kind of kept everybody.
No, well, of course,
How
it
many
depends.
companies bid last time? Sorry,
I do not
we
remember.
didn't have very many.
No, it wasn't very many.
I think we had 3, but only because we went back to these guys and said, hey, we need to find somebody, you know, then we like,
Yeah, I don't.
we didn't
I don't
really
remember
get
off the top of my
any.
head.
I know one very many.
No.
Three.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and they
and your
found
markets are really Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Aetna, which Aetna bought out Coventry, and now I heard the other day they're gonna run just under the Aetna umbrella. Health Alliance,
Expensive.
and I'm missing one here, Blue Cross Health Alliance, United Healthcare, Aetna, and
Skyrocket last year.
I'm drawing a blank. There's
The
another
point
one in
is,
there.
it's becoming,
Small.
Yes, it is very condensed. So, but based on your size, you would I don't think there's really any way around those individual applications to get firm rates. You know, because otherwise you're gonna you're gonna give them a census, and they're gonna come back with a number, and those numbers may look good. And then we've gotta get the individual applications done to finalize. If you were over 150 heads, you know, there's potential you could bypass that underwriting application, but based on your size, I think you're gonna be relegated to the application.
Okay, on the applications, when do we need to get that started then?
Well, what, those would really probably happen sometime in June, where you would have, you know, realistically, you're probably gonna have to give your employees a week to 2 weeks. You know, some of them may have to take them home to a spouse, or, you know, I don't think it's possible to expect everyone to fill them out in one day when they have to get medical questions answered by somebody else.
If we made a determination, let's say at our board meeting, that, okay, we're gonna open bids up for insurance this year, and we're still gonna open them up whenever, accept them in August, as I've said, right?
Mhm.
Is there any problem then, instead of that June 8th board meeting, to make that determination, to do that in that May board meeting? To make
No.
that determination, just to give us
More time.
a little
Yeah.
more time, because I
No,
always feel,
yeah,
and
there
I
wouldn't
know,
be any issue
I know
with
there's
that.
no way to not make us feel pressured, but just for like the last 3 years, I always feel like we're just like this. And I know that's just a part of it,
Yeah.
but
I have a tactical question, I guess, based upon what we know and what we don't know next year. Would we be better off, are we gonna gain that much from bidding? I know there's no way of knowing. But I'm thinking with all the changes that may happen, and are not gonna happen the following year, does that make a better sense to wait for 1 year till this all sorts out?
I wish I had a crystal ball.
But you understand my question?
Yeah, I understand your question. I don't know that I have an answer for it.
and I understand what you're saying too, Jeff, I guess, and it's not so much me personally, but me then being more of a county inhabitant and not on the board. We still don't have to approve that. And my concern is if we know, and maybe not, if we actually know what it is, if that wouldn't give us better planning, first of all, to make that choice
No,
for
that's
the
fine.
next
I'm
year.
just-
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
You're
trying
kinda
to talk
brainstorming
through
it.
this
Right,
out.
Right.
I
We got a
don't know
while.
what the right answer is either.
Do we have to bid it out? Do we have to bid it out, like the, other that we have to
Yeah,
try for
that,
nothing?
that's what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
you know, is the rebidding.
Right.
Do we,
You know.
are we legally?
That's what I'm asking.
I'm not sure we legally have to, but
Right.
we may be I mean, it
Yeah.
may be the best
I
thing
just
to
say
do.
Didn't we catch a little flack last time for not doing it?
Right.
Well, yeah,
And-
but you're gonna catch flack for just. about
I
everything
understand that, and that's not a
I'm
problem.
trying,
We know.
we gotta manage this like a business,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And I mean, and with the eye in our stockholders are the taxpayers, okay? So I'm just trying to figure out what makes the best sense.
Right. And that's what, even from my perspective, looking at it, is if we know for sure what it is, and then that, if that's within what I'm looking at a budgetary amount, you do that more than I do, but if you knew as you're preparing a budget for next year that for all of September, all the way up, you know, in October, then that leads you better budget for
Sure.
the 18 year, you know what it is.
Right.
You know, not, because you also don't know from another election one way or the other, or we talk about that all the time. It could go both ways, like you're saying, the crystal ball. I mean, a lot of people thought the last 4 years election, something wasn't gonna happen, and it did.
Well, either way, we're gonna be locked in October 1st to a policy for 1 year.
Mhm.
Okay, the election will only affect,
Hopefully, yes,
well,
should. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think they're gonna honor every contract that somebody has.
right, I think that's gonna affect the October 1st, 17 contract. And going through and filling out how many
About
page?
10 pages.
10 pages with 60 people is not a small endeavor.
Didn't we do that, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, we did it,
I know,
so.
I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying, is there an answer of what's prudent?
I
There
do
isn't.
not have an answer.
Okay, well, we can always do it 2 years in a row. I mean, it's not, it's just,
Yeah, because probably whatever is gonna happen then is still gonna happen whether we filled out our 10 pages this year or not.
oh, yeah, that's,
I don't know. Anyway, it's food for thought. I guess what I'm asking is if we can make, it would be okay for us then to make that determination. in
No,
May.
in May, yeah, that would.
so does anybody object to making that decision on the agenda in May?
No. If we
Okay, then
renew,
we'll
not
put that on the
rebid,
agenda.
and you renew it with Blue Cross Blue Shield, can they stick it to you on the premium?
Sure.
That's what it
But they're
was.
gonna give you an idea. They could, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Probably a poor choice of words for me to say sure after you said stick it to us. But I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna come back with whatever they think they're gonna come back
Yeah,
with. And then we're gonna have to,
negotiate.
my guess is I'm gonna have to go back with them and
well, remember the issue we had last time was that we had to rebid temporarily because, well, remember they complained because, certain people complained because we didn't have one of the bids in and,
yeah,
you know, because it was the quote.
yeah.
And we need to make sure that our insurance folks understand, and then can we negotiate it? If we had locked them in,
That's why we went back and said, I'm not, or from my standpoint, I told them, no, we're not gonna do that.
right, and that's why I,
17.9%.
yeah, and I mean,
18%.
Right.
if we bid it and then we hammer, I mean, do we take some of the flexibility away from
I don't
what?
think so, because
Okay.
in my standpoint, Travis, you may speak better. The nice thing I think also about that bidding aspect is that if they come in too high, that's
We
too
reject
high.
them all.
Yeah.
Right.
Or not, I mean, I don't.
That's fine, I'm just
you know,
talking.
can't we-
from-
I mean, we could do that if we did, because I don't know if it's gonna be the same fight probably either way.
True.
All right, what
Travis,
else
you have
you
any
got?
thoughts on what
Um,
we gathered on down here or not?
No,
Okay.
I think in May is fine. I did want to bring up, I don't
Go ahead.
know, one other item on the commercial insurance. ICRMT, or IPMG again, they had sent some loss control recommendations, and I just wanted to kind of make you aware of it. They had met with Jeff Wood, and they had basically given him access to an online PATC training portal for correctional officers. And as part of that, Sheriff Wood was going to write a letter basically for a grant for, I think it was body cams. So that, I just wanted to bring the board up to speed with what was going on there with that. But the other piece, in Augie, I know, we've had a couple of meetings with the department heads, and Augie and his staff have kind of spearheaded those, and we've had some good discussions. But a couple of things, the Fair Labor Standards Act, that is something that we did review with the department heads in the last meeting, of some proposed regulation changes on whether people could be salary versus hourly. Right now, the administrative rule is written, it's being passed through. It doesn't have to be voted on by Congress because it's an administrative rule, but we're hearing that's probably going to go into effect in July, and that basically raises the threshold for who can be salary. Now, we did do some research as far as elected county officials, and they do appear to be exempted from that, but it would be your non-elected officials that, you know, potentially can be affected by that. So that's something
And we
that,
kind of revamped that when we went through all that hourly stuff.
yeah, that's
Anyway,
something that I had mentioned. And then the other thing that came out of our last discussion, just something to throw to the board for thought and consideration, is handling contractors and making sure that contractors kind of have a specific criteria when they do contract work with the county. So, you know, as an example, you know, giving the county a certificate of insurance, naming, you know, them as an additional insured, and making sure they comply with all the prevailing wage and all those things. But that's something that we did have some brief discussion on, because I'd asked, you know, kind of what county projects were going, and I know they said there was some work at the airport and some other things that were happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, maybe not? Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Travis, this is Derek Lorenzo. Travis
Derek?
Bushes. I'm
Nice to
sorry,
meet you.
Derek.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's all right.
So you must be on the airport board.
Yeah.
He is the airport.
Yeah.
Oh, he is the airport, okay.
Let's stop soon.
That's right.
But that's something that, you know, I'd like to continue to work with the department heads on, is kind of getting a set, you know, here's a list of things that we need from each of the contractors before they start working with the county. You know, that way it's kind of a same thing between all departments, and everybody's kind of following the same protocol anyways, if that makes sense.
I think that's part of risk management in and of itself.
Yes.
You know, you,
Well, it's just good to have kind of a set package, you know, and like I said, they've been very good to work with. You know, they've been all very receptive, and I know they've got a lot on their plates, but I just think that would be a good thing to get in place, that all of the departments are kind of using the same contracting, you know, guidelines. Before we start work, we gotta have a certificate of insurance, you know, all those things that minimize the risk for the county, so.
Any other questions of Travis this morning? Thank you, Travis.
Travis, do you have anything else?
I think that's all for right now. I know
Now,
we've-
when does our contractual relationship end?
we are actually,
Or you
the
remember?
3-year,
I didn't
yeah,
ask you before.
the 3-year agreement is actually up in September.
Okay.
So we can get you a renewal proposal anyways prior to that, and that way you can, decide. And then, your property and casualty would renew in December, and then your work comp would be January, and then the airport liability is September. I think that's the airport policy is the first one of the terms. Yeah, September 21st, December 1st, and January 1st are kind of all the commercial package renewals.
And then, of course, health insurance is October 1st.
So I'll give that to you, just so you have a copy of that. But that came from Diamond Brothers, so I assume somebody got it, but I just want to make sure you got a copy of it as well, so.
I'll make sure Augie has it and it becomes permanent record.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Myself,
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. If you have any other
Fill in every
questions, feel
spot.
free to let us know.
Okay, thank you for
All
also
right.
for your staff too.
Thank you. I'm gonna sneak out if nobody minds.
No.
You're not gonna miss anything.
I wouldn't even sneak, I'd just go.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody need to get some coffee or anything, or are you okay?
Something quiet here.
I'm going to, but please don't wait on me.
Andy, do you have anything this morning?
Nothing this morning.
Okay. We're not looking for a big meeting today unless somebody needs to, so. Mr. Bruner?
Not much, stopped at the animal shelter last week, talked to Henry, everything's fine out there, getting ready to put in the fence in the back. Still need John Kraft to pay for the bowl that he ran over and smashed. She's gonna get me a bill this give me, but, he's not here today, so.
Okay.
And, the health department's process of getting ready to put in the automatic door. They have to hire somebody to do wiring from the basement up to the door, so I think the bid was a little over 2,000.
Okay.
So we all agreed to
For the
do
wiring of the door?
for the wiring for the automatic door.
Okay.
It has to be come up from the basement,
Okay.
so, my neighbor's gonna do it. And I think the estimate is a little over 2,000, so. Well, that's who she hired.
You need to say
When
it more
you're done,
professional, that's what you need to
The
do.
guy down
You
the
don't have to
street.
worry about it, the paper, it's on the
An
video.
acquaintance.
It's on the video.
Says yeah.
You've got a contractor to do that.
Yes.
She hired him, I had nothing to do with it.
All right, well,
Yeah.
that's the way to say it the first time, okay?
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. I
I'll
love
learn
this
one
small
of these
town,
days.
don't you?
I'll learn ways.
So that's, okay, what's the door cost? Or did-
I don't know, it's,
I was
they
just
have a
curious.
grant of $8,000.
Yes, talk to his neighbor.
I,
I don't
Making
know.
Jeff nervous.
it's like herding cats.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know, I think the grant's still over 8,000. to
Well,
do it.
but the door isn't that much,
I
so,
thought, yeah, I thought we were looking at maybe getting 3 of them
well,
for what we had in there.
I
Okay.
can't tell you either.
Okay.
We
I
did
just
tell
curious.
Janet to make it happen, so, all
Yeah,
right?
she's making it happen, so. Forget the neighbor part.
It's too late, just forget it.
Okay,
All right, thank you, Dan.
there we go.
Do you have anything, Michael?
Yes. Your friends,
He
at,
doesn't have any.
I was gonna say, who could that be?
the Purple Book people. The UCCI,
Yeah.
United
County
I'm
Council.
wondering if we could drop them a little memo that would, what would their opinion be about this zoning issue?
I
And-
sent them.
Oh, okay, because Darren and I talked about that, and I thought, boy,
I
it'd
think
be,
that's what I sent
be
them.
kinda curious to see
Go ahead.
what they would have to say about that, and if they, because I understand that we're awaiting a,
Okay, he's gonna handle that in his report here in a
Okay.
minute.
Got it this morning.
Yeah,
Literally, probably 40 minutes ago.
then I need to be still and go on. And
that's fine.
No, I mean, that's.
But
that's
your
a good
question
point.
is
Right,
still,
right.
yeah, that's fine.
There's no silver bullet in this phone as far as the email
Oh,
goes, so
okay.
we still have issues.
Well,
Check.
the only thing I would say is that we're only gonna go one way. It's either gonna work one way or it's
Oh,
not.
yeah, I know that, but
I
I'm just
mean-
thinking we need to resolve this rapidly, and I'm wondering if these folks, could
Would they-
get,
Let me do some checking.
Okay.
Because I thought no, I don't, now I'm not, now that we talk more, I'm not sure that I have.
okay. I'll put that dog on your,
Yeah.
flea on your dog.
Yeah. We'll put it back on your dog.
Mr. Zuber, do you have any?
Yes, Mr. Roy. No, I really don't think, other than you've answered that with the door thing, because I'd really like to figure out where all that.
Yeah, and
cash
Don
is
wants to
stuff
move
like
on that. Don's ready to
Right.
move on his as soon as we get some experience. Yes.
Door thing. You talking about the automatic door?
Yes.
Do you know where, I'm sorry.
No. You left and look what happened.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, we
I'm-
talked about it. Janet is proceeding, but she's
Yes.
gotta put in wiring
Yes.
to do her thing, and then Don's gonna watch that, and Don may get another bid anyway. He told me he might get a separate bid from somebody else to put the door in, just to make sure that everything was okay. And I said, fine, because I think Janet is using somebody from Terre Haute. Don was looking where to use somebody here locally. Okay?
And I think that brings up the good point though, of what Travis was saying, almost like, you know, even those type of issues where we may not be totally, well, I guess we are bidding, but so that everybody would have that same format that's coming down the line, so that we know that we're covering everything down the line.
Is
See,
there
at
a
the
ball
airport-
figure on that?
You know, I just think that's important. If
Well,
we
it's
have
like-
somebody working for the county, and it's like on a big project, to me, that's important, because I don't care if they're doing a $500 job, or $1,000, or a 500,000. If they do something incorrect that's illegal, even like, we could get it for a lot more than that.
I just think of the defense of town should.
Yeah,
See,
we
I
should
think that's,
have
we should have that form.
a certificate of insurance at the
And
very
and
least.
whatever else we
And
need
whatever
for
else that's
the
needed
risk
out there.
management
I'll
aspect.
talk to them
Absolutely.
about that.
I don't have anything else, Jeff.
No, that's fine. Augie, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, thanks for giving my report.
Oh,
Well, and we both talked to Don, and I'm
Yes.
sorry to
No,
step
no,
on
no,
you.
no. We're good.
Derek?
So I called Steve on Thursday of last week, Steve Young, the head of aviation for interim director, Illinois Department of Transportation Division of Aeronautics. It's right there on the email, official title. He was supposed to get back to us in regards to the chief counsel's take on what we actually needed for zoning. So he called me this morning, and I had him send him the email, but it wasn't kind of what I was hoping for. So from Cindy Boucher-Hallam, Special Assistant Chief Counsel in the Illinois Department of Transportation. Here is what would be best for IDOT. The airport needs to work with the state's attorney in developing the appropriate zoning. Once zoning is done, I would ask PRG to have the state's attorney send a letter indicating he finds this zoning in compliance with the statute. Will that work? And then TXS.
And we'd ask more specifically about the zoning and what that zoning needed to pertain to.
And
But,
what I talked to Steve about this morning, he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, I understand that we're basically putting the ball back in your court. So, and I know just from talking to Mark that he, believes that we should be going towards the more,
broad.
whole hog version of the zoning, which is obviously a much larger undertaking to the point where it may not even be possible. But I don't know if we can work between the two of us and see what we can.
In other words, you're saying whole hog, in other words, zoning the entire county. Well, do you have to do that right now? I mean, can't you do this with plans, yeah, zone the airport with plans on, with construction of, I don't think.
So, I mean, it sounds like to me that if we can, if Mark will help us put together the zoning as it pertains to the hazard piece, which is the easy one, the spot zoning, if we can get that put together and submit it to the state, then I think we'd probably be good for now, but.
That's what I think we need to do.
Has anybody discussed with Mark about maybe annexing it into the city? That might be the quickest, simplest.
Yeah, I know you brought that up, and I'm like, that's in my mind, if we get the spot zoning done, that's probably the easiest.
That is the
And
easiest.
then
Okay,
after
okay.
that, then absolutely, I think that's probably the most likely. killer.
Because I'm not interested in zoning the whole county. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff.
No, it's not.
And I think Mark's concern is that he's worried about what they're gonna say. And my take, like Derek's, is we're not doing countywide zone.
Right.
So if we go in with the spot like others folks have done, we do the best job we can of it, and that's what we do.
And that's in compliance.
And that's,
Well,
and then if they find it not in compliance,
Well, then we go to step B.
that's right. But I think that's what we do.
And that's the part that would frustrate me, Derek. I think you also. We're sending up there to the state because they said, oh, whatever, we can't do this, this, and this. Even though when a lot of that stuff took place, we didn't know if we were under 1948, 1952, no zoning, no nothing, even when they took that. But that was never even really declared forever. And now, they're not giving, I'd like to have verbiage from them, written verbiage, exactly what's gonna be okay, because we're gonna go
We
through all this
asked that.
kind of trouble.
Yeah.
They
we
will
ask-
not give
that's
that
fine.
to us.
Yeah.
They
We
will
say
not.
We don't have boilerplate, we don't do that.
And that's the stupidest thing, because they just don't wanna tie their hands. It's like, well, these people before us who have not checked in on all these times, I'm getting all
They-
this.
That's how, yeah,
But it's not even like it's from their point, they don't even care. Like,
Right.
they had
Right.
no concern for that
Only-
whatsoever
Yeah.
until someone said, hey, wait, stop.
Yeah,
Right,
and that's what I'm
It's all the
saying.
watchdog.
And it's,
The
when it's
reason
just like, well, I mean, even if it's right or wrong, I didn't care. I mean, why didn't somebody check on all that ahead of time, our state and local government? And I've had different discussions with different people, and they say, well, that we don't really have enough money to do that, to check that. I'm saying, I don't care, I think that's a cheap way out from that. Another way right here. If I understood right, and if I understood you, tell me wrong, you sent up there and say, we're trying to do the right thing. Give us
What
in
is the
written
right
form what we need to do,
Right.
and then we'll make a determination.
But
We
we're
may
gonna,
decide
we're
not to
gonna
do
tell you
it.
the right
Or
thing.
or tell us that the spot zoning or
Yeah.
whatever's gonna work. And they're not,
Right.
they want us to say, this is what we think is appropriate to comply with the law.
Maybe
So
they'll
all we're doing
go,
is opening ourselves
approve.
up more for
hope.
illegal,
I think they
that
will.
we've done
Yeah,
something not right.
Because they don't know really.
And what's gonna happen is, if it gets readdressed, then they'll say, okay, well, now it's not. But they are as ignorant of this whole situation as we
situation
are,
as we
and
are,
they didn't wanna even hear about it
Right.
until
I think
someone raised their hand.
What we need to do is move forward with what we think is the most appropriate way.
Right.
That's all we can do. If it's not, we haven't violated
If
anything
it-
because we haven't done anything else. So all we can do is
We're not
put
really-
that,
We haven't given direction, we haven't given marching orders,
Right.
we can only do, I say.
right, and I
it's right
think
there.
we collectively have to agree that we wanna go after the spot zoning. And we're, through me, direct, or through him, direct the state's attorney to set up the appropriate way to do that. And we have our hearing, if that's what it takes, set up the airport committee as the zoning board and go through with it and do it.
What does the zoning involve? I'm kind of
Well-
illiterate. I don't understand what it means to zone the
Any,
airport.
oh, it's on the airport.
The hazard zoning is something out to 2 miles from the airport, and basically gives police powers.
You just write that on a
to-
paragraph and set it in. I mean, I don't understand
I think
why, why the big deal.
frankly, I think the state would be happy with that.
Right. Now, whether they're challenged by somebody else on it, I don't know. And that's what I'm saying, is that we need to do something to, first of all of us wants to see the operation of the airport safely.
Right,
right?
absolutely.
Right.
So, I mean, that's, so we need to or I don't wanna use the word
No,
memorial.
don't use that one.
We want to get that down on paper so that we're protecting the airport.
We just saying we're zoning the airport, saying in a paragraph, is that all you do?
Well,
In order with statute and the legalese, the important thing here is to keep in mind that it's not just about, hey, we don't want to zone. You know, we're not given direction from the state, and we have to interpret what they're looking for, why the money was turned off. And it can be as simple as, you know what, we need to ensure that all the federal money that was put into that airport will be safe, and the fact that the airport will be viable and a safe airport for the next 50, 100 years, right?
that's right.
So in order to be with the, you know, our interpretation and in the spirit of what they're asking for, that spot hazard zoning, we believe answers the mail.
You can check with
That's
other
what we take to
airports
mark.
around and see what,
Well, that's,
how
I
they
think
zone.
that,
Well, there's no one has come across a situation. The majority of airports that are county owned are zoned counties.
Oh,
There are very few that are not, and those, the answer generally has been, and back me up on this, Mike, Tom has done a lot of legwork on this, and is like, oh.
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
They
what I'm
don't,
talking
we don't know. And
And that was the answer from the state. We had no idea this was an issue, you know,
Until the watchdog decided.
until it was brought to their attention and hey, and so read this, and so, you know, you gotta feel like you're working without a net a little bit when the state is saying, you know,
we don't know either.
Yeah.
Is this frustrating?
Yes,
Yes. Is,
Well-
we still have to pick through what's the appropriate way to move forward. And Ellen's right, I mean, we have, I hope he realizes, Ellen, that we have asked for and
Yeah,
basically been told you're not gonna get it.
That was my frustration.
Yeah, and
standpoint,
I-
because
I just read
that's what I
it 3
talked to
minutes
Derek,
ago
and
and I
I
went,
understand it, I'm like, what do you want us to do?
Well, basically, they've been presented a situation they've not been presented
But
before.
then that, in my mind, is another one of these deals, Andy, where that's not us.
Well,
That's them, that's like those other people who supposedly approved and, oh, we didn't have enough people to check if we approved the right thing or not.
but the simple fact is if we want the money,
we got
we gotta go through
Yeah,
this.
which battle do we choose?
How much
you know?
money are we talking about here?
$800 million.
Not 800 million.
800, sure,
6,000
it's like 1
state.
point, yeah. it's-
1.1 million.
Yeah,
In any future projects to maintain the airport, we get X amount of dollars per year as a program. And it comes from the landing fees and so forth from all the major airports that the airlines pay in the United States. So we have like a, 7, 8 year project sheet that are gonna spend money if we can get the spigot open
Well,
back up.
And I think time is an essence too. in this.
Right.
That's why I think, you know what, state's attorney, do something, you know,
Yeah,
make,
right.
make some,
Send
if
something
they're not
in.
giving us any guidelines,
send something in.
make something,
Yeah, well, I mean, it answers the mail. He was just trying to do
Yeah.
something that finishes this conversation forever. And I don't know if that's a possibility. And it certainly wouldn't be something that was, you know, time sensitive.
right, that sounds like,
The individuals involved are not willing to go out on a limb for us at this
Right.
point.
But eventually, we're gonna need money for runway improvements, we're gonna need
Why,
money.
you know,
Taxiway improvements, that's the next one
well,
in the
if,
pipeline.
if
But
we
why-
present something to them, they approve it and say that's all we need,
That's what I'm saying.
then we've done.
Right.
and I'm about to the point I'm thinking, this was supposedly, what, our $72,000 or $74,000 a year budget
Mhm.
that we have out there for a county. And,
78,
we- huh?
78.
Okay, let's say 85. Okay, let's have some growth. Let's get $85,000 that we're spending on this process. Are we getting a return of 75 to 85,000 anymore? I don't know. I don't think we are the, I don't think we're the best thing for that county or for that airport. You know, I've tried to talk with the city about it also to see if they would want, if that's a possibility. I think they have a better arm as far as going out and attracting things at that airport. One of the things they put in the, whatever it was, the district that went all the way up to Christmas and
Yep.
shot over to the airport. I mean,
That's the enterprise.
thank you, couldn't, no, can't think that. That's what I was looking for. I'm not sure that's not an avenue that, we've kicked this thing for 3 years, and I don't know. I
Well,
mean, I'm to a
don't
point
forget
where-
the
How many
economic,
people does this actually serve? Is it
don't
15
forget
people?
the economic impact study.
I'd like to know that.
That just the basic crop dusting does. Just that, what it does for ag. May not need it for 3 years, but when you need it now, and you need it badly. And it just, the economic impact it has to ag, I don't have the study in front of me, but
I don't, we can get that information. I don't think we should hold up while you're finding out this information. We need to move forward,
Right.
whether or
Yeah.
not we're gonna go with the city, whether or not, we need to get this off of dead center.
are you saying you don't think we ought to do that program out there?
I don't know anymore, Mike. That's
Well,
what
if,
I'm saying.
okay, let's say
I
we
do-
decide
I
we don't want to
honestly
do
don't.
that program anymore, then what about the next program?
I don't
And the
know.
next, and the next, and
Well,
next,
and
we're
that's
going
an
to have to
important
do
piece. So
those.
you brought up a great point
I
about the
don't
city
know.
having better leverage to use that airport and bring in business. However, it's kind of like the conversation we have with the highway, and we've had this conversation before. When you turn that money off or you stop it, it's not just next year, it's 10 years down the road.
But wouldn't they or some other public entity or whatever else be able to pick up that?
Well, and I think
that
that's
profit?
where
I mean,
they,
we haven't made tons of profit that I'm aware of off that airport for 20 years. As a
Well,
county.
But we're not going to.
well, yeah, that's
We
primary
can't.
versus secondary, tertiary effects. I mean,
I
that's a big
understand that
piece.
part.
And I think that is absolutely worth exploring. I think that's not necessarily the issue on the table right now. I think we need to get it going and then continue to explore the option of having the city take it over and
Or,
just
or some other way.
That's
that
what
it
I was
works.
saying.
What about
Yeah.
just taking the money that we're gonna spend, put in the credit card machine and the extra gas tank and not do all the rest?
well, it's the same.
That doesn't
it's the
solve
same
the problem.
piece. Yeah.
Because
We're
we still
still-
gotta have money to do all the other improvements that we're bound to make.
So even though we're adding ramp space and that can be argued, hey, we're only gonna need that for a certain few months out of the year, that's still a project that's in line that was assessed as a need. Obviously, moving the fuel farm and all the things that come with it are important as well. It's not just the tanks as they exist right now. There's some other issues. We wanna make sure that we have that fuel farm they're gonna put in is gonna be first rate, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's multiple years down the road, multiple,
You're forward planning. I get that. You're
I
forward
guess let me
planning.
But
just
you
finish that
do.
thought though. So the other issue is the next project in line is gonna be, like Mike said, some improvements that will have major immediate effects if they aren't followed through with. Like permanent improvement to the taxiway and runway improvement down the line. Some of those things,
Which we
Our
don't have
high
the money
dollar-
to do.
No.
Which then
Projects.
says, what? If we don't have the money to do it.
But that's what this program's set up for airports, to
I-
have a
I'm just
positive.
frustrated, Jeff. I think I just keep hearing the same thing for 3 years.
Okay,
Not anybody
but
here's
we
fault.
didn't,
Not anybody.
but within the 3 years, we were working on programs and there was construction going on in the airport when you were still on the board. I mean, it's not been void, okay? They were finishing up on a project when you first got on the board, okay? So, the crosswind was just being finished up when you were on the board.
We
okay?
didn't make this mess, this
Yeah.
board didn't.
No, we
But-
know that.
but-
But we can't look, I don't think we can look back, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, because whatever's there, we have to deal forward. And just like you're forward planning, thinking this, and this, I think another part of that forward planning is looking at a lot of other options, if there are other options.
Well, we can either sell the elephant, or we can feed the elephant. But we own an elephant. Now, we gotta make a decide whether, somebody's willing to give us money to feed that elephant, but we can't just ignore it, we can't shut that spigot off, or we're gonna have to feed the elephant, or shoot the elephant, that means sell it, or whatever, but we've gotta do something, because this is perpetual. And the way I
agree with that
understand it, how many $1 million do we have out there that we're responsible for?
well, that's an important piece too, is when we let the airport degrade, then we're gonna be on the hook for some of that federal money that went into it in the first place.
You know, I've heard that before too. And
What
I'm
that
just-
means, I don't, yeah, valid.
All right,
We'll plead
gentlemen,
ignorance.
One thing I wanna bring up and something to think about, and I'm just trying to think worst case scenario for this, and why Mark was saying what he was saying. Let's say, we say, we're gonna do the zone, that's our interpretation, we're gonna go forward with that. State says, hey, that looks great, spigot back on. We missed the letting, which is the most likely scenario for this year. We fast forward to next year where we've done more of this planning, things are in line, we've gone through all the hoops, and then individual parties go back up to the state and say, no, look at this, this, and this, and now you know, it says, you know what, they're right, shut it off again, and now we're 3 years, 4 years down the pipeline on this. That's my worst case, that's my concern, is by not following through and trying to do everything we can as far as the countywide zoning, that's what the possible, I mean.
The votes aren't here to do it. I'm sorry, the votes are
Oh,
not here to do
no,
it.
I know, we're not, that won't happen. That's what I'm just saying, if we might as well, and I think that's what you're saying, is might as well just press and see what we can get done.
That's
If
right.
not, then.
And I'm sorry, Derek, I didn't mean
Yeah, I
to,
got you.
but because none of us is,
No.
well, I shouldn't say none of us, but I don't know who here would favor countywide zoning in order.
I think you've opened a can of worms that you don't know what.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I think this
see,
is,
that's one of
That's
those
not
forward plans that I
necessary.
brought up before, though.
Yeah,
I think you
well,
need to
the
look at
administration
land
and that.
usage
Now
in
you're
the
talking.
whole county. But that's one of the things that me.
One of the things, I'll bring this up again, the Vigo County zoning head, she told me, she said, look, if you guys decide to go county zoning, she said, you're gonna spend a ton of money getting that set up.
Right.
But, he said, why don't you just contract it to the city? And the 10 cases that you're gonna have a year,
City may not want it.
well, if you can get the city to do it on a contract basis where they handle it on case by case, said you're not gonna have 10 decisions a year to make as a county zone. So just, she said that's a consideration there too.
Well, and that's what I'm saying on the same forward planning here. If you look at land usage in the county, in a forward planning setting, Edgar County's not going away, people are not gonna change. I mean,
How many new
You have to-
businesses are gonna come in and would be using it for?
I'm just talking about in general.
Well, your biggest zoning issues are gonna be ag related, like hogs, things like that.
And some of that's already regulated by the state.
Right, well, and then mobile homes,
Right.
that's another thing.
And
And
public
would I be
traffic.
fair for the majority of the board, I know Carl's not here, but would I be fair in going in and asking Mark to look at strictly the,
Sure.
is that the recommendation
I
of the
think,
airport,
that was certainly for me.
airport committee?
What do you think, Gary?
We're gonna do it.
Okay,
All right, moving
You
on.
be
Do
fair.
Yep.
you have anything else? I know, do you want to say anything about the,
Proposal?
yes,
Yeah, so we talked it over, and I think we're okay with actually putting that in the paper here before the county board meeting, right? That was.
sure, whatever, you just need to see Augie.
Putting together a very openly worded, the Edgar County, board is looking for proposals for the main hangar at the Edgar County Airport for a period not longer than 1 year.
Yeah.
To be revisited. And I say,
I-
we haven't got it refined, but that's basically, and that's about it. So looking for the proposals, see the number we get in, we'll get what information we need pulled that's not in the proposal.
Written proposals,
Yes, yes.
And we're looking for flexibility there from the people.
Yes.
So if somebody comes in with they want to share, want to share the toys, if you will. Okay.
Well, and I think even that, is
As
over
part of the
to-
proposal.
If it's a fantastic proposal and they're gonna use every bit of that space and bring in more money and,
Right.
it looks viable, again, we wanna keep this general because
You're
we're
right.
gonna have lots of questions
And
and.
another thing you have
we don't
done
wanna-
there, Mr. Chairman of the airport committee, have you ever have you ever bid for airport manager's job yet? Did we put anything in there for
Not
that?
yet.
In terms all we have right now.
Yeah.
to bid for an airport?
No, to
Just
put
put
it,
it in
we need
there.
to post that job
Oh,
description.
okay.
We tabled that temporarily, we'll get back to that for
Okay,
sure, but
okay.
That's,
Try to get a company. I didn't know.
well, and that was one of the, someone mentioned that, there's a lot to that, and so, frankly, what we have with Tom right now is someone that can kind of talk to all parties and is, cool.
Oh,
head in the
yeah,
situation,
and
well-versed.
there's
There's a
nothing
lot-
wrong with Tom. but I
There's a
just wanna
high
make
price
sure-
tag to that, so, bringing a new guy that can run an airport and maybe has his, mech certs and all that and can do that, may not answer the mail for us. So that's kind of where I'm at on that, but,
May not be affordable either.
Right.
that's.
Well, I personally wouldn't wanna step into a situation. I wouldn't wanna step in that situation. At this point, with all the controversy that's going on, would you go, yeah, I'll move, I'll.
In an
Come
interview
run that airport.
where the interviewer asked the interviewee any questions, we just would skip that.
Yeah, that part, yep.
The other issue that I will ask the state's attorney about is the question that was asked by Don Ferris. we need to get that resolved in a proposal from the state's attorney. We owe it to him to answer his question, whether it's positive or negative. We need an answer so that that doesn't sit there and just fester.
Well, and frankly, I'd like to know a little more about it.
I would
There's
too.
no-
Right,
Yeah,
that's,
I
right,
would too.
Yeah.
right. But I mean,
How much are they paying for land? I mean, that would be a question I'd ask, and I brought it up the last
I
meeting.
think the
Not that
main,
that's important, but
the main thing is that once a land goes through court action,
That's it.
that's it.
A decision has been made.
Right, so, I mean, whether the attorney's brought up certain factors, we don't know. But we need the state's attorney to give us some advice about that. And I know what the state says about it, so, but that's kind of a
Has he done
thing for
anything
closed session.
formal
okay?
yet, Jeff? Has he
Not that I'm
hired an
aware of.
attorney or?
Well, no, we said we would get back to it.
right.
And my point here, without going into executive session, is that we need to do some research. We need to get the gentleman an answer,
Okay.
okay? And that's what, all I'm saying here. If we discuss it, the nuts and bolts, then we need to go into executive session on that, okay? Do you have anything else that you need to?
Maybe I shouldn't ask this, but
Then
That's gonna
don't.
be-
Then no.
No,
Yeah, it doesn't matter what's paid for, how much land,
no,
it's
I
the
wouldn't want
idea.
to ask.
well, something else.
Well, like I say, my curiosity is strictly as far as the airport and how it's all shakes out and what, original intent was, just so we can know, and like I say, I frankly have no idea how
Yeah.
that all.
Well, and our
Shook
state's
out.
attorney
I
doesn't
know,
know either,
I
so.
talked with Jim Kelly when this first came up a long time ago, and he gave me a little bit of the background on the land acquisition, but that's all I know about it. They were talking about $60,000 that couldn't find, well, it was all used to get the land around the airport, but I
Right.
don't know who got what and so forth, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll work with Augie on that this week, and getting that proposal in the paper. If you guys want, I can send you an email too with
No, that's
what's in
fine.
it. But,
Mine won't come through anyways.
and I'll get you, if you guys want, I can send you an email from Steve as well. As it's pretty complicated, saying, good luck, boys. But I can fire that your way if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big help.
We would like to-
All right, Augie, did you have anything else? Do we need to go into an executive session for anything for you this morning?
Anything
Derek?
we need to discuss?
Do we wanna do that? I mean,
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's.
Instead of beating around the bush.
Okay, do I have a motion, and that is to cover personnel only?
I'll make a motion to do that.
That's very
That
precise.
was much more succinct than you when he makes
Yeah.
that motion.
I'm not seconding that.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
You make the motion.
No,
man.
no, I don't know.
You,
what
all
we're
right, all right,
doing. I don't,
you,
I don't know what we're
I
doing.
can't hear you.
Pending litigation also.
Yeah, that's what, I put there.
I got a
I don't
meeting
know.
at 11:30.
Pending litigation and personnel.
Okay.
Is there a better
I'd
way?
make a motion, if you're willing to rescind that motion.
I'll resend it.
I'd make a motion to go into closed session to discuss appointment, employment, discipline, performance of specific, or dismissal of specific employees of a public body, and pending litigation. We don't have negotiations.
No.
Okay, just what I said.
I'm sorry, roll call.
Second.
Who
Second.
seconded?
Second.
Derek?
I got a
Voigt.
meeting at 10:00.
Yes.
Lorenzen,
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes.
Helsley,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
You wanna take a quick potty break? If you have any questions, Gary,
Okay, no,
no
we'll-
action will be taken.
no.
Well,
You can't go all at the
Wait a
same
minute,
time.
it's still on.
He said that pretty quick, didn't he?
Yeah.
No,
You guys can't take action. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll talk, I'm serious, I'll talk.
Now.
If you want me to.
No, I'll talk to him.
Now we'll go
I don't know.
outside.
Why would you want to talk
She's
to
just
him?
gonna say that. you're
Are we
great.
done, Augie?
Yeah, we're done. Are we?
Are you,
now you-
why would you
Now-
want to
Okay.
Adjourn?
Honest to God, I would never
Andy
go back
moves,
up
Mike
move.
seconds,
Yeah.
all those in
Aye.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
there. She
Opposed,
didn't ask
we're
for
adjourned.
anything. I wouldn't
No,
say
and I-
anything.
Yeah.
But if I